Indiana is ready for Ohio State as both clash on Saturday night for the Big Ten Championship, and that'll cap off a crazy week around the Big Ten. That's right. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Shemon, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, hit that free subscribe button down below. That way you'll never miss a single episode. And if you could share, follow, and like, that will help us out too. And you could hype YouTube videos. And we're going to talk about the Big Ten Championship game, obviously, coming up on Saturday night. Can't wait for that. Mike Tomlin to Penn State. Whoa, that's kind of weird. I don't know about that. And also want to talk about Kirk Ferentz coming back and Michigan maybe getting a 5-star after all that they were after in the summertime. So we'll get to all of that as we continue here on Locked On Big Ten. And we'll have our Pigskin picks. Pick and compare preseason win totals to what actually happened. That'll be a lot of fun as well. It doesn't get any bigger than this, though, on Saturday night for the Big Ten Football Championship at Indianapolis. We got a #2 undefeated 12-0 Indiana team taking on a #1 undefeated 12-0 Ohio State defending national champion team, I might add. All at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. 8 o'clock Eastern, Saturday night. Reminder, we are going to go live here on Locked On Big Ten as soon as that game is over for immediate post-game reaction, inviting you to mark your calendar and join us for that so you don't miss out. But the first thing I'm going to watch for in this game is the demeanor, how both teams react starting out at the beginning of the game, because this game means different things for both sides. Let's start with Indiana. And we'll call it what it is. Look, for 120 years of largely unsuccessful football, it accumulated over 700 losses in its history. This Saturday night is the biggest game in Indiana football history, period. Now, 700 losses aside, since Curt Cignetti has arrived, they've only lost twice. They were both last year. He's lost 0 times this year. Both losses last year were to Ohio State and Notre Dame. And it should be noted that those were the 2 teams in the national championship as well. And while the Hoosiers only lost to Notre Dame in the playoffs by 10 points, it was that late regular season game in Columbus I'd want to focus on here. That's what everybody tuned in to see. Was Indiana real last year? They were undefeated up to that point too. Was it just a nice story? Anyway, they lose the game to Ohio State pretty handily, and they finished the regular season 11-1 and made the playoffs. They lost that game to Ohio State 38-15. So there was your answer. Were they for real? Yeah, look, Indiana was a good team. They get besmirched a bit because their non-conference schedule was easier. Maybe the conference schedule wasn't as tough, but they won games. They won big, and it was a good football team. And yes, it was deserving to be one of the 12 in the college football playoffs. But were they at that next level? No, they were not. I mean, even Curt Cignetti said that game in Columbus got just too big for the Hoosiers all of a sudden, and it affected them. It affected them most on their special teams. They whiffed on a snap to the punter and later gave up a punt return for a touchdown. So there was a 14-point swing right there in a 38-15 game. So process that however you want over a year later. But this year's Indiana team is different. You know, they're day and night better, actually. And I actually argued 2 days ago here on Locked On Big Ten on this podcast that Indiana's roster is actually better than Ohio State's from top to bottom. Now, I get a lot of pushback when I say that, but I lay it all out. In fact, go back after this one for a second. Listen, it was 2 days ago here on this Locked On Big Ten channel. It's actually tagged Beating the Buckeyes, and it's literally titled Indiana Football Roster Better Than Ohio State's. Go check it out. After you watch it and listen, if you still disagree with me, fine. We'll just agree to disagree. Plus, Saturday night's game, it's not going to be in the hostile Horseshoe in Columbus, Ohio, like it was last year. Look, this is a 40-minute drive north of Bloomington, And granted, there's going to be a lot of red in the crowd on both sides. It's going to be hard to discern who's who because the Buckeyes are bringing their fans in red and Indiana will have their fans in red as well. But it should be a great atmosphere. But it'll be more split, probably about a 60-40 crowd, I would think, for Indiana. Again, the Buckeye fans are going to come to this. There's no doubt. So that's just kind of a thumbnail on the Hoosiers and how they're going to react to this game compared to last year's game against Ohio State. Now, for the Buckeyes, I want to see how they react as well. Why? Well, they just beat their rival Michigan for the first time in 1,191 days. And it was their win at all cost game. And they might be a little bit spent emotionally. And this is a classic letdown spot. It absolutely is. It's also a classic look ahead spot to what's around the corner, both all at once. Two things can be true. Look, the Buckeyes are the defending national champions. They're looking ahead to the playoffs too, right? Right? I think so. Probably a little yes and no. But, both teams want to come out of this game, win or lose, healthy because they're both still going to the playoffs and probably both get a first round bye, win or lose on this game. Certainly Ohio State will. I think Indiana would still get finish in the top 4. I mean, if number 2 loses number 1, how far are you going to fall if it's your only loss of the season? So I think both teams are still looking at a first round bye in the college football playoffs, no matter what. But after this game Saturday night, there's even bigger fish to fry. So Ryan Day noted, however, that, the Buckeyes, it's important to them to win the Big Ten title. They haven't done it in 5 years. Those losses to Michigan along the way kept them out of contention for the most part. And they would like to hang a Big Ten championship banner near their recent national championship banner. Since they just checked off the Michigan box, they've checked off a national championship box. They'd like to get a Big Ten championship. It's important to Ryan Day. But no matter how much they want this or don't want this or are looking ahead or whatever the case may be, will they come out a little bit flat? I think it would be natural for them to do so. Or maybe they'll be flying high, trying to air things out with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Or maybe they'll hit the ground and pound, the running game, try and replicate that still very impressive 20-play, 12-minute drive that they put down on Michigan. It was one of the best drives I've ever seen. It certainly was the best job I've ever seen in Ohio State offensive line ever do. So, look, they could play either way. That's the great thing about Ohio State, and they've been largely untested this year. They can do a shootout and throw it deep, or they could just 4 yards at a time and just grind it out. But so can Indiana. They have an outstanding ground game, and they have a great offensive line. And they also have big-time receivers that look, everybody wants to pay attention to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, they're going to be in the NFL someday. These are top-notch guys. Nothing to be ashamed of compared to Ohio State. And both defenses are excellent. Now, you already know about Ohio State's number 1 ranked defense because it's all you heard about all year and how Matt Patricia's unit only gives up 7 points per game. It's phenomenal. They took a defense. He took over for Jim Knowles and got even better. And that's after losing 8 kids last year. Been a great job. I don't want to short sell it at all. It's phenomenal to give up 7 points a game. But Indiana only gives up 11 points a game. They're kind of right there. And Indiana has more than twice as many interceptions as Ohio State. So the secondary is very good. And I think Indiana has the best tackler in the Big Ten in linebacker Aiden Fisher. He wraps you up, you're going down. So if all this is not enough, then we go look at the quarterback battle between Indiana's Fernando Mendoza and Ohio State's Julian Sayin. And whoever has the better game on Saturday night is probably going to win the Heisman Trophy next week. It seems like every week when you're looking at Julian Sayin, we're recapping, he had another 300-yard, 4-touchdown performance where he completed 80% of his passes. He's been great. This year was 79% on the year. For the whole year, 79% of his passes. Threw for 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. Mendoza for Indiana, not bad. Completed 72% of his passes. That's phenomenal. It's not near 80 like Sayin, but 72 is considered great. and he threw for over 2,700 yards with 32 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. But he also ran for 6 more touchdowns. That's where he's a little bit different. He'll bust off a 15-yard run here or there. He can run out of the pocket when necessary. That'll be a key for Indiana on this game. Overall, we can't wait. We'd love your comments and predictions, not just from Ohio State fans and Indiana fans, but all you Big Ten fans. You've been watching all these teams all year long. What do you think? Give me your predictions. Leave me your comments here. Comments and predictions galore. Would love it. And don't forget, all of you, join us after the game. We go live as soon as that winning coach does his interview on the sideline, and then we'll go live, and you get my immediate raw post-game reaction, unfiltered. And I get yours too with real live time comments in the comments section. And we just have a blast on Saturdays after these big games. So join us for that. We'd really appreciate that. All right. Put it in your calendar. And if you could also hit that subscribe button, that would be great. That way you'll never miss a single episode. And if you could share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, that would help us out a lot as well. Still coming up, Mike Tomlin to Penn State. No. We'll tell you why we're even talking about it. Plus, we have Michigan recruiting news that Wolverine fans should be excited about that. And we'll do our Pigskin pick for the game. We always do that on Fridays. But we're going to also pull up from August the preseason Vegas win totals of all 18 teams and see what they really did this year and compare. It's eye-opening in a couple of cases. We got all that coming up in a minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. NFL Sundays move fast, and one big play in a game, and suddenly everything feels differently. And, that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. You're participating in it with FanDuel. It's a lot of excitement. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight play. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. Receivers get hot, defenses tighten up, turnovers, momentum flips. You know the deal. So live spreads, money lines, they adjust instantly while the game's going on. You can check that out. Player props, all update as the games go on. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but NFL primetime games have been hitting the under lately. A lot of teams tired, worn out this time of year. Just kind of keep that in mind for Monday Night Football next week, next Thursday Night Football, Sunday night. Anyway, you could jump in on any of these kind of things, and you can be on the right side of all the action all season long. Visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you at FanDuel.com. Thanks for checking us out here on Locked On Big Ten, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. That way, you'll never miss a single episode. And if you could share, follow, and like, that helps us out too. Don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. Christmas merchandise, school logos, all that stuff, pennants, shirts, all that right there with our podcast. If you want to go back for a second, listen after this one. All right. The dumpster fire known as the Penn State coaching search continues. And I don't know if you caught former Pittsburgh Steeler quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, who could be very outspoken this week on a podcast. He said it's probably time for the Steelers and Mike Tomlin to go their separate ways. Look, the Steelers have only had 3 coaches in my lifetime. And that's amazing. So there's rumblings out there that maybe it's time to part ways with Mike Tomlin. And a lot of people that agree with that, by the way. But it was Ben Roethlisberger who then said next, this most interesting part about this is that Tomlin should be the next coach at Penn State. Now, just because of the state of Pennsylvania, a lot of Steeler fans, a lot of Penn State fans, a lot of overlap, kind of the same person. And they said, yeah, Tomlin should be the next coach at Penn State. He thinks he'd be a great culture guy. And down there in Happy Valley, and he thinks he could recruit well. I mean, maybe not. But it was fun to think about for about a half a second. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought it would be a good match, but it's never going to happen. First of all, Penn State Penn State's very similar to the Steelers. This is why this is interesting to me, because they both like to run the football to a fault. They both don't recognize the forward pass that much, and they both love playing defense. That would be a good fit. So the more I thought about it, the more I thought it would be kind of cool, but it's not going to happen. And Mike Tomlin was asked about it at a press conference. He got really irate, actually, about it. He says, look, man, I don't have time for this nonsense with these college questions. I'm not going. Never. I don't care how big of a booster check you give me. I'm not going. Never. He says, never say never, but I'm saying never. And then he pretty much said, any more dumb college football questions? So Mike Tomlin is not going to be the next head coach at Penn State, but it was fun to think about for a half a second. Meanwhile, the offices are empty. The signing week is winding down. They had like 24 kids that verbally committed, and all but 2 of them bolted. You're down to about 2 or 3 kids now with no head coach. It's disastrous. We talked about this a little bit on yesterday's podcast as well. So, and by the way, James Franklin has flipped a few of them to Virginia Tech as well. So while Penn State's in big trouble, let's jump over to the Michigan recruiting world for just a moment. You know, we talked about this a lot over the summer when people were given verbal commits. You know, Michigan's main objective, it seems like to me, is to sign speedy, game-breaking wide receivers to help out Bryce Underwood and give him some targets. And they got a couple of 4-stars coming in next year, but they were all in on a 5-star wide receiver named Calvin Russell. You've heard, every day you've heard us talk about him. And he ended up, Michigan thought they were going to get him. At the last second, he kind of surprised everybody and said, you know, I'm going to Syracuse. Gave a verbal commit to Syracuse. And I guess Syracuse told him he could play basketball too, play 2 sports, whatever. But signing day came here this week, and he did not sign with Syracuse. So stay tuned. Expect Michigan and Miami to be all in on this kid until he finally signs and makes a decision. We're going to put him on flip alert. Again, 5-star Calvin Russell, wide receiver. Again, they already got a couple 4-stars coming in. If you have him come in now, Bryce Underwood's got some targets to throw to downfield. And look, Michigan's class looks pretty good. They got a couple of 5-stars like edge rusher Carter Meadows, and remember running back Savion Hyder. It was big mystery where he was going to go, and they landed him. So there's some talent coming in to help out immediately next year. In case you missed it on yesterday's podcast, 70-year-old Iowa football coach Kirk Ferentz announced he's coming back for a 28th season in 2026. Already the Big Ten's all-time leading winning coach, past Woody Hayes this past year in September. The Hawkeyes were 8-4. It is the 5th straight season that the Iowa Hawkeyes have had a minimum of 8 wins. Good job. Good, solid, steady job over there. And one little interesting note as you get ready to watch the Big Ten championship game on Fox on Saturday night, you know, the Big Ten's most recent TV contract, the rights to the Big Ten football championship, it floats around from network because there's a group of, you know, there's Fox, there's CBS, there's NBC, all that. They float around the national championship game. Again, it'll be on Fox Saturday, but next year NBC has the rights. You know, Big Ten, NBC Saturday night, that whole thing. So they have the rights for 2026, but they're shopping them. You can sublet them, I guess. So it's the only year that NBC has the rights in this 7-year contract. So they don't feel like they can really build on it with perimeter programming or what have you. So they're trying to sell the rights. And they're currently in contract talks to sub-license next year's game to Prime Video. But the rights that NBC has is somewhat in it's interesting because it's a sub-license in and of itself, because Fox, which has a majority stake in the Big Ten network and ownership by the Big Ten, they have some control here. They're not too happy about this, by the way, but they were in control the last round of TV negotiations. And so Fox actually has final say as to whether NBC can ship off the rights. Networks do this all the time now. Like ESPN has the college football playoff rights. You remember last year, a few games were on TNT, wasn't it? So that was why they subbed, because they got to carry NFL football or whatever the case is in the meantime. NBC, by the way, looking for $70 million for the rights to that game. All right. So if you're new here, every Friday we always do our Pigskin picks. Now we only have one game this week. It's a Big Ten championship game. We got the point spread and the point total. We'll talk about that. But I've gone back and I dug up the predicted summertime preseason Vegas win totals for all 18 Big Ten teams. So we're going to put them up, and then we're going to put up the actual wins, and we're going to see who was close, who was right on the money, who was way off, who was under, who was over. We'll have a lot of fun with that. That's all coming up here in 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful and personal and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames, that's A-U-R-A, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not something you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos that rotate before gifting it. You can put it in for your parents or grandma and grandpa, have the photos already in, ready to go, so they don't have to do it. But it is easy, by the way. You can do it. I have one. We love it. I love it. I love how it just rotates from family memory to family memory. You plug it in, and the memory is already there if you preload it for whoever you're giving it to. So they won't have anything to figure out, no headaches, just instant enjoyment. And it also uploads not only pictures, but 30-second videos through the Aura app. So you can do it all right there. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting Aura Frames. It's A-U-R-A, auraframes.com, and get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver Mat Frames. Named number 1 by Wirecutter, by the way. By using the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's A-U-R-A, auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to our listeners, to you guys. And these frames sell out fast. So order yours right now. Get it in time for the holidays and support the show by mentioning us, Locked On Big Ten, at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for checking us out here on Locked On Big Ten. Always appreciate you everydayers, and thanks for making us and Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. All right, it is time for our Pigskin, I'll say Pigskin pick. And then we'll take a look at win totals and where we actually ended up based on predictions by Vegas before the season. But we'll go on screen. If you're on Spotify or Apple, no big deal. We're just going to put up the graphics with the point spread. Number 2, Indiana. Number 1, Ohio State. Both teams 12-0. So Ohio State started out, by the way, it's 4. That's the average. I have seen this as low as -3.5. I have seen it started out at 5.5. So the money's going on Indiana. America is betting on Indiana. America is rooting Indiana. The point total of 47.5. Here we go. I've made the case on 2 separate podcasts this week. This is Indiana's game to take. So you give me 4 points. I'm gonna take Indiana, and the over under at 47.5. I'm gonna take the under on this one. Couple of reasons here. I do think maybe Ohio State comes out flat for a quarter coming off the Michigan game. And I think their defense will cause some challenges for Indiana. Now, both sides have explosive offenses. So I don't think we're going to be bottled up for long. But I think we'll have a slow start. And that's going to tap down on the potential number for the over of us getting over 47.5. I do eventually think both offenses get going a little bit in this game, but it'll be too late, mostly second half stuff, to hit that 47.5. So I like the under. So give me Indiana at +4 and give me the under 47.5 for the Big Ten championship on Saturday night. Now, let's take a look at some win totals. These were the Vegas win totals in August. We did this on a Pigskin Pick segment over the summer. And right at the top were Penn State and Ohio State. So Penn State was predicted to win 10.5 games. I think we even took the over. We were looking at 11. 6 wins. Way off. Nobody saw what was coming this year for Penn State. James Franklin on down. Meanwhile, Ohio State, Vegas was predicting 10.5 wins. We took the over this summer. I think we had them at 11-1. They ended up at 12. So they did that. Oregon came in at 10.5. They won 11 games this year. Here's where a lot of people missed. Indiana, 8.5. That told me that everybody thought, all right, look, Indiana's a lot better than they used to be. So 8.5 is a good number. But the 11-1 fairy tale story from last year was a nice story. They won't match it. Well, Kurt Cignetti put on an encore this year and hit 12 wins. So a lot of people missed on that. If you were skittish about the 8.5 for Indiana, they really outperformed that with the over. Michigan, the number was 8.5, and they won 7 last year. I came on here and I said, I think they improved by 2 games this year and get 9. That's exactly what they did. So the over 8.5 hit, and they hit 9 right out. We were Lockdown Big Ten was right on the money on Michigan this year with 9 wins. Illinois, we had the over they were at 7.5. They get 8. So we're big fans of Brett Bielema, and we think he's got it going on this year. He's got a chance to pick up a 9th win. Of course, all these teams do, and with postseason games, getting an extra win. So anyway, that was pretty good. Iowa, the number was 7.5. I think we predicted over on that. They hit 8. They always hit 8. We just told you for 5 years in a row, they've had a minimum of 8. 8's the minimum. The standard is the standard, to quote Mike Tomlin. Yeah, 8 for Kirk Ferentz and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Nebraska at 7.5. That was a tricky number. I think we had them at 7 as well. They got 7. Then they kind of faded down the stretch. So the under hit. Maybe we had them at 8. I'm trying to remember. If so, we would have missed. But yeah, Nebraska's number was 7.5. They came in at 7 wins. USC. I thought this was low in the offseason. 7.5. I said if Lincoln Riley wins 7 games this year, he's fired. He's got to do better than that. And they did. They came in at 9. So the over hit with USC. The Washington Huskies, 7.5. They had 6 last year, 7.5. We had them at 8 or 9. I think we had them at 9. They hit 8, but they hit the over at 7.5. And then Minnesota, Vegas had them at 6.5, and the over hit at 7. I think we also had them over. We got a lot of respect for PJ Fleck. He wins a lot of games there. Rutgers was tricky. Vegas had them at 5.5 wins. They came in at 5, so the under hit. I think I had them at 6. So I would have missed out on that one. Michigan State. Vegas predicted 5.5 wins with Jonathan Smith in year 2. They only got 4. They never got going this year. Never got the plane off the ground. Wisconsin, 5.5. I think that I remember saying, look, guys, I said Wisconsin could be better, but you're not going to see it in the win total. I think they had 5 wins the year before. So we definitely had the under on them this year, and the under hit at 4. But Luke Fickell's coming back next year. We'll see what they could do with a bigger financial commitment to the program. UCLA at 5.5, I thought was way high. I thought maybe 4. They came in at 3. Deshaun Foster's gone. They got a new coach they hired this week. We'll see if they could get that thing turned around at UCLA. Maryland, this was interesting. Vegas had them at 4.5 wins, and they started at 4-0. And then they lost every game the rest of the year. Lost 8 straight games. I think we had them at 5. This is all going by memory. So we would have missed out on that. But man, not even a win after the 4-0 start. Northwestern at 3-5. They're another one that outperformed. Northwestern and Indiana, the biggest outperformers for Vegas. 3.5 was the prediction. They got 6. They're going to a bowl game for the second time in 3 years. Don't sleep on Northwestern, man. That's a good scrappy bunch. And David Braun's a good football coach. And then Purdue at 3.5 seemed a little lofty to me. After a 1-win season last year, they doubled it with 2. They started out 2-0, then they lost 10 straight. So that was fun. That's the win totals from August compared to what they really were as we closed it out in November. But yeah, Indiana and who was the other one? Let me back up here. Let me just double check this. It was Indiana and who else made the big jump that we were talking? USC. Yeah, that was Indiana. Oh, Northwestern. Yeah, Indiana, Northwestern, your biggest jumps. So there you have it. Pretty interesting. A lot of fun. That's how we do our Pigskin picks. We only have one game. We find other stuff to talk about as well. So that'll do it. We've got the Big Ten Championship game Saturday night. Join us live afterward. Looking forward to it. I can't wait. It's going to be a great game. Indiana and Ohio State. We'll have additional recaps on Monday, and we'll keep an eye on the Penn State coaching situation to see what in the heck is going on there. That is unbelievable. The Heisman Trophy will be next week. And, Sunday, we'll have the final rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee. So we'll know who's playing who in the playoffs. We'll talk about that on Monday as well. So that poll comes out on Sunday. We got a lot to do. So I can't wait till we talk to you again. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the Big Ten Championship game. Catch us afterward live. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Shemon. I'll see you there.